All right. Welcome to episode number 22 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. As always, we are brought to you by our friends at Fellowship Brand, their premium grooming products for men. Check them out at fellowshipbrand.com or on Instagram at fellowship_brand. My guest today on episode 22 of the podcast is Kyle Bellnap. He works in the banking industry. He's an accomplished professional in the banking industry. We're going to talk about that a little bit. He's a husband to a woman that he's met in sixth grade. When they were in sixth grade. He's a father to two beautiful girls. Kyle was named Boise Young Professional of the Year in 2017. He's an accomplished 40 under 40 in 2018. He's a graduate, actually with me in the Leadership Boise graduating class of 2019. He and his wife, Lacey, and their daughter Emery enjoy traveling, reading, fly fishing, golfing, just spending time with families and friends. Kyle appreciates spending some time with some like-minded, driven individuals, which is why I asked him to come onto the podcast. Excited to have you today, Kyle. Looking forward to turning over some rocks and just having a fun conversation here at the end of 2020, early 2021.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, for sure, brother. How has your 2020 rounded out, and what are you looking forward to in the next year?
I think it'd be safe to say that 2020 was a mess for a lot of people, although I don't want that to overshadow the positive things that happened in my family's life. We had the opportunity to move back up from Salt Lake City. We took a year-long sabbatical down there to help open up a bank in Salt Lake, and then in July of 2020, we're asked to do the same up here in downtown Boise.
Oh, cool.
So that year away was fun. I actually remember being down in Salt Lake, March 11th, 2020, when Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID and the Jazz walked off the court.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, it's finally here.
Yeah.
While the West Coast was, already buckling down for closures, and, there were city blocks in Seattle being taken over by occupations. And
it's been a crazy year, man.
It has been. It has been one I'd never thought we'd see in our lifetime. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. And so, you've been in the banking industry a long time. How did you get into it? What interests you about banking? Why banking specifically?
Yeah, so I began as a teller when I was 18 up in Anchorage. Had decided to go to school up at UAA and needed
Go Sea Wolves.
Go Sea Wolves. Yes. Bless their hearts.
Shout out to all of my Alaska friends. A lot of you who listen know that grew up on the Kenai Peninsula, just a little south of Anchorage.
A little south of Anchorage, flipping for reds.
There you go.
A lot of time spent on the Kenai Spur.
There you go.
I went up there as a young dude and was honestly just looking for a job. And it just so happened that while I was in banking as a teller, I found a career and transitioned and transferred over to Alaska Pacific University so I could work and put myself through school. And I was on a 5+ year plan.
Okay.
However, I look back at that graduation day as one of the most proud moments of my life because, I feel like I earned it.
Yeah, of course.
All that to say, by the time I got out of college, I had a really great job as a commercial lender. Moved into the payments and innovation space, managed a territory for managed a Mountain West territory for a large bank in that payments and innovation space. And then, I've just got to see I I was always told that I was the oldest 21-year-old or oldest 22-year-old anyone ever knew.
Okay.
Uh, and I'm 33 now, and I actually feel more young then than I did now. So I've had the awesome privilege of being everything from a teller to a president.
Okay.
And, you know, life has been, the banking industry uh, has been super good to me and super good to my family. But if you had asked or told me when I was 18 that I was going to be in banking, I would have probably hit you with my skateboard.
I think it goes with a lot of us, man. Like it's, hindsight's, clearly it's 2020, but at the same time, I mean, um, our ability to understand what opportunities we'll take advantage of in our life is just, it's so small, right? Because when you get to that point, it's like, you got to say yes or no a lot. And it just kind of branches and builds and branches and builds. And then all of a sudden you're, obviously going to Salt Lake City to be a president of a bank. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, well, and I mean, having those roots in Alaska, I mean, I'm so proud to say that I got to go to college and spend time up there.
Yeah.
Some of my most fond memories are where we grew up, man.
Oh, for sure.
We had my bachelor party on the Kenai River. If Steve and Ron McClure ever listen to this, thank you. Um, we had an absolute blast on that river, and part of me feels like I grew up there. Just because I think those were the most impressionable years of my life. I learned so many lessons in my 20s that I'm so thankful I don't have to relearn in my 30s or learn the hard way in my 30s.
Oh, for sure, man. And you know what, one of the reasons that I reached out and wanted you to come onto the podcast is I just think that you have such a mature perspective, not just on how to build a career, but the things to kind of stay away from in a career, or just kind of the distractions and all those different things. I mean, you and I have had several kind of in-depth conversations around this topic over the years. And, that's one of the things I was hoping that we'd unpack a little bit today is just, some of the learnings. This podcast is about motivation. It's about mindset. It's about self-awareness. It's about personal growth. And, once again, you're one of those people that I turn to as a peer and just always try to, extract information from as you've got, plenty of experience. So, maybe share some of that with us. Like what was it like? Like, what was your mindset like as you progressed through your banking career? What are some of the things that you learned along the way?
It's interesting. One of the things I love about banking is the people you meet and the amount of people that you get to help, both clients and internally. And a lot of people, banking is kind of this enigma, I feel like, but it's pretty simple, and people who work there, they work hard. I was fortunate enough to have several folks in my corner kind of growing up as a banker, if you will. And every position that I've taken in a specific direction or wherever I pivoted in my career was because I was asked to. And, my dad and uncle they both work in the power industry. And so one of the things in the power industry, similar to banking, similar to life, I mean, is, be nice to everyone because you never know who you're going to work for. And I don't think that could be more true in the professional space, but honestly, just in the personal space. I think back to the day that I was a bank teller for a year and had a boss named Aaron Berry. Aaron ran all of the development and training programs in Alaska. And so, with Aaron's help, I got fast tracked into a role that, some individuals are 40 plus years old with 20 years experience or 50 plus years old. And I got to see the whole state of Alaska on that bank's dime. The president of the bank up there was a really admirable, authentic guy. And so the people that I've admired in my life the most are those who have that. By the way, it was nice of you to call me mature.
Yeah.
I'll hopefully my wife listens to this.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Um, it's just authenticity, man. And to put it simple, just be kind.
Yeah.
And you'll go places. Do unto others as you would do
Yeah.
to yourself. That kind of stuff. I mean, there's a million sayings out there that.
Yeah, the one that I like is success leaves clues, right? I mean, when you start looking at those around you, especially those in leadership positions and those that you get to maybe be aware of why they were able to get into the position that they were able to get in, and you start to follow that trail of breadcrumbs. It does have a lot to do with integrity. It has a lot to do with authenticity. It has a lot to do with, but it just being there for others in a service before self kind of way, and really have this emotional discipline, instead of, we all know those leaders who have gotten into leadership roles, but they're also not emotionally disciplined. They treat people like crap. They bring with them some baggage or some echoes of the past that, they've been hurt in some way. So they have to hurt others, or, just kind of be rude or passive aggressive or exert power. But, certainly when earlier in your career, you can, see people who are doing it right. That's such a big win. It's such a big leg up and advantage.
The city of Boise and the folks here, I mean, from a professional and personal standpoint, have some of the most awesome people on planet Earth, which is why my wife and I chose to. Lacey moved up to Anchorage, then we moved back down to Boise. It was in our long-term plans to be back in Boise. It just happened a heck of a lot sooner than we thought it would. And thankfully it did, because, when we got here, we were welcomed with open arms. And those breadcrumbs that you're talking about, and I think there's something to be learned from every single individual that you interact with. The question is whether or not you want to exert the time to interact with them.
Sure.
And I am a huge believer in integrity, and a huge believer in principle. And having been in situations before in my life, whether it be on a nonprofit board or whether it be just amongst friends up in Alaska, it's nice to be looked at as the responsible one. And it also, experience definitely counts. And there are such thing as wise 25-year-olds.
Sure.
There are 25, 23, 19-year-olds out there that, are wiser than you and I.
Sure.
And those are the folks and the young professionals of the world and the aspiring professionals of the world that don't necessarily have to be young, are the people who I have a huge soft spot in my heart for, the people that want to do well, that give when they may not have the means to do so.
Yeah.
That put people before dollars, that are adaptable, that can have the emotional intelligence to actually understand change. And perhaps business is brutal.
It is, man. It's stressful. It can erode your mental well-being, your mental health, all that stuff.
Oh man. And this year, especially, has absolutely been one of the most tragic blows to small business owners across the country. The restaurants of the world, the service industry. We have people arguing about stimulus money and polarization and partisanship. And to be wholeheartedly honest with you, we should be thankful that we have a government who's willing to inject money into our economy to keep it going. Or else, 8th Street in Boise would be full of tumbleweeds and all the doors would be locked.
Yeah.
That said, man, I've been really lucky. I've always loved the saying, is it odd or is it God?
Yeah.
although I feel like the people that I've learned the most from have been the people who have done right by individuals, and the people I admire most are the steady, nothing shakes them,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of person I want to become for my family first and foremost, and then anyone who I get the privilege of interacting with throughout my life.
Oh, for sure, man. Calm conquers chaos, 100%. Right. I mean, you approach it with a, mental fortitude and with a vision of the future being a better, like my right now is not my forever. I will push through this. I will prevail. It's really hard to be denied when you are moving forward with a mindset of being undeniable. Right. And this time that we're in right now, this, extremely difficult, strange time that we're in, I hope that we can prevail as a group. I hope it brings us together, though it doesn't always seem like that's what's happening right now. But I think that I hope that as a society, as communities, we could come together, kind of understand what this is, what it's not, and stop being so strong in opinions and maybe a lot more strong in our faith in individuals and the people around us. And that's what's so frustrating right now, I think, more than anything else. And I think it's caused a lot of people to go insular. I think it's brought a lot of people distress and that they've withdrawn. And I've seen that in plenty of people that I interact with. People have changed a lot in the last year. And they've kind of developed poor habits or they've had to change the habits that they have. And it's just like I said, it's just difficult to see people going through transition and changes like that. I don't know if that's been your experience during this time or your perception as well, but that's certainly what I see outside looking in.
No, absolutely. It's everyone reacts to and handles the situations differently too. One of the things I think that 2020 taught me was to love thy neighbor, look out for other people, because supporting those small business owners. Heck, my wife works in healthcare, right? So she's on the front line of this stuff, and she's combating COVID in the hospital. When we were staying up all night as bankers, issuing PPP loans to small business owners so they could keep paying their employees and keep the economy going. 2020 has humbled me out a lot, but it's really made me appreciate what I have in a life, in a career, and in the people that are my friends and I know and love. I try to be an open book. Everyone deals with stress differently. And, there's definitely been a time in my life when I was not healthy and I was not dealing with the stress and anxiety in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But the other thing 2020 has taught me is that you've got to be intentional with your decisions, and you've got to stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
And what you said by, wrapping your arms around each other. I mean, I feel very fortunate based on where we live right now in the city of Boise, even though it is having its small pockets and blips of issues that'll flare up here and there. Every single merchant that works on 8th Street in this town has the other one's back.
Yeah.
And that's not something you see everywhere else. There's a lot of humanity left in this town. And there's a lot of humanity left in this world. And a lot of people, they choose not to see that. And I refuse. I personally refuse to see the worst and try and seek out the best. Because simple things, right? I think Boise's been on every single list there known to man for something good. But to the guy who lets you over when you flip your blinker on.
Yeah.
simple things like that are really kind to the lady that holds the door open, or you hold the door open for the lady and she says thank you.
Yeah.
Whereas some people don't.
Yeah.
That kind of humanity still exists out there, and that's the stuff I think we need to carry forward into further generations.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast as well, which is I found myself in the first couple months of COVID. I had a couple Zoom coffees with people, and just chatting and catching up with folks. And, actually a couple of my first guests on the podcast were folks that I was having Zoom coffees with here and there. And then I decided like I had such an appetite for people's perspectives around what's going on in this time, what's going on in their lives. And then I realized that my network of people that I interact with, or at least, my friends who even know friends that have come onto the podcast, it's like everybody's got an interesting perspective or a story to share around this. Not just COVID, not just the times, but the life that they live and the perspectives that they've picked up and the things that they've learned and what they can share and how they can pour into others in like a meaningful way. And what an incredible time to be doing that. That's the positivity that I think that we need in this world is people to reflect and to talk about, places that they've been and where they've gone and how they've, changed their lives in these meaningful ways. And, certainly one of the reasons I wanted to have you on as well, most notably because, I've been watching your Instagram, I've been watching some of your outwardly posts and you've actually posted a lot about sobriety. And I'm really interested in kind of unpacking that journey with you, because I know that maybe there's a lot of people who have turned to drinking more during a time like this. And maybe you have a perspective here that you can share around, your lived experience and kind of journey and I guess perspective around alcohol.
Yeah. One of the most challenging things about right now is, we are asking parents to be teachers to be online, professors, and deliver material in a manner that they really haven't been or are comfortable doing. And then you've got people getting sick and losing their lives. And I mean, man, holy moly, you could just go down this tailspin of bad stuff. But yeah, as you mentioned, so August 22nd of 2018, I made the decision to just stop drinking. And it came after what was probably 4 or 5 years of lots of drinking, lots of social drinking, patio beers. And it was, honestly, it was killing me from the inside out. And mentally, I was struggling so bad. And there's absolutely no way I could have put the bottle in. Well, I was a beer drinker. I don't really like wine or hard alcohol that much at all. Although I will tell you, there was a day I wouldn't have said no to any of those. I will say it's the one thing. It seems like you're not anything without your brain, and you've got to keep that space healthy. And you've used the terminology unpack a couple of different times, and I remember Jake, August. It was sort of weird how things worked out for me, because I had tried to white knuckle sobriety basically for several years. I mean, like I knew I had a drinking problem and I knew I didn't have an off switch, and it was fun. And but there was a part of me that knew I needed to stop, and typically people that don't have drinking problems don't think about the fact that they might have a drinking problem.
Right.
So because everyone's been trapped up inside, I mean, we've seen a lot of that, unfortunately. and my message to them would be to reach out. I remember August 22nd, 2018, and the way things lined up for me were as such that I called my doctor's office and miraculously somehow got in on the same day,
Okay.
which never happens.
Never happens. No, I don't think that's ever happened for me one time ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was a huge part of my recovery. And she's, she isn't a psychiatrist. She isn't a psychologist. She is a human being that practices family medicine. And when I told her nurse what was going on the phone, they got me in that day to help me out. Then I was terrified. So I went to the doctor's appointment August 22nd in the morning. They got me in. And at noon, I was Googling and looking up AA meetings. And I was terrified of what to expect. And when you're going through that kind of transition in your life, you're harboring and you're hanging on to a lot of shame and guilt. And so I didn't know what to expect when I walked in, but I can tell you, I walked into that meeting and walked out with a sponsor, but more importantly, a mentor, man, a friend who helped save my life. Because I'm convinced that had I not stopped drinking, I wouldn't be here having this podcast with you today.
Really?
And one of the big motivators in staying sober for me is like, man, you can help others, because our society is such right now that everyone is so connected through social media. Everyone can read the news and everyone interprets the news differently. That we've sort of lost touch of being human.
Yeah. And
I don't want to lose that. And you know what? Had someone ask me, I love, by the way, Lucky Perk Coffee out there off of Overland and Eagle.
Oh yeah.
They are awesome. So I hit that place up pretty much every day on my way into work. I do have an addictive personality, as I have thoroughly admitted here on your podcast, dude. But, I absolutely love iced coffee. That said, they one of the baristas there asked me if I had any New Year's resolutions, and to be wholeheartedly honest with you, I have not ever done a New Year's resolution well. I don't think.
Okay.
And so I thought to myself, I'm just going to live life day by day. I've got 2 little girls, an amazing wife, an incredibly supportive family. That's all I want to do. I don't want to set some big, hairy, audacious goal of losing 25 pounds. It would be helpful if I did lose 25 pounds. And I know the same doctor who helped me get off the sauce would probably tell me that it would be healthy for me to lose 25 pounds. So, maybe at some point in 2021, I'll hit the running trails again, and perhaps down at Black Box VR. And
there you go, man. those my people down there.
They're awesome. Yeah, that. How cool is that?
It's one of the coolest things I do. I absolutely love those folks down there. But at the same time, you're talking about what I'm kind of distilling, for lack of better words, from what you're saying is, you're being present, right? Like if you were to make a resolution, it's like, hey, I have set a lot of goals in my life and have not paid attention to, the 6 feet in front of my face all the time.
Yeah.
And, right now it's just like, we're in a crazy time and I'm enjoying this. Like, this is what I'm enjoying. These are my people. These are the things that we like to do together. These are the moments and the memories that we must create with one another. And, maybe there's a time during the year or during the next year or whatever it is to really sit down and say, okay, like, let's do this long-term strategic planning, but it's about living right now. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Day by day. I remember there is a guy in town. His name's Tim DeSantis. He was the third visit on August 18th of 2018 for me, and was a counselor. And, 30 years of sobriety, substance abuse guy. And he said something to me that I will never forget. And he said, all you have to do today, if you do one thing, is not drink. And for me, I tell myself that every day. Yeah. I tell myself that for my wife, for my girls, for my mental health. Relapse is a part of recovery. And I've had the privilege of helping some people out who are going through this because they've turned to a substance of some sort, whether they be opioids, alcohol, I don't know, food. I mean, you name it, man. You can pretty much be addicted. Your phone, a couple have pointed out that I haven't relapsed, and I'm like, that's not true. That I relapsed 3 to 4 days a week for 3 years before August 18th. And it was awful, Yeah. The old, I'm going to have one drink, and one drink turns into 2 drinks, drinks turn into a few drinks. And, the next thing you know, you're hailing an Uber home and living in the now. And one thing 2020 has taught me, and I sure do appreciate you having me wrap up the year with you, is being grateful for what you have and what you have right in front of you, your loved ones. 2019 for my family was a really, really hard year. A lot of life change. I mean, we moved down to Salt Lake, started a bank, lost my grandfather, lost my father-in-law, had a baby, all within a 4 to 5 month time period.
That's a lot. That's packing it in there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it was the people that I had in my life that got me the support I needed to give that support back to my family.
Yeah.
It was my parents. It was my mentors, my tribe up here in Boise. I mean, we don't have any family that lives here in Boise. However, I mean, you don't realize, I didn't realize how important those friendships are until you move away and you try to start over in a new city, right? When life, I feel, is all about social connectedness, man.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how you keep people's minds healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that one time, you don't step on them on ropes courses. Do you remember when that one time you did that to me?
Oh, I don't. Maybe you can remind me. Yeah, of course I do.
Oh, that was good times, man.
Good times. Hey, I want to take a step back again and just kind of talk about the process, the awareness of what we fear. You said that you failed a couple times throughout the course of about 3 years, and I recently came across some work by Brendan Bouchard. Shout out to one of the great high performance thinkers out there, and he talks about pain, so the courage to change, and he talks about there's 3 types of pain that people feel. They feel fear of loss, like they will lose something because of making a change. The pain of the process of changing, the uncomfort that comes with that, or the change, or the fear of that the outcome is not what they expected. So the grass might not be greener if you stop a certain behavior, if you change something in your life. Like, was it all three? Was there anything in that sentiment that stands out for you that was kind of that struggle over the 3 years that maybe folks could relate to in their own personal struggles or journeys if they're having them and they're listening?
Oh, absolutely. It was all three and then some. I'd feel like if you are um, where I was mentally, you no longer felt the pain. It was numb. And you, I don't want to say welcomed it,
Yeah.
but once you got there, physically, I mean, absolutely. And that second, to Brady's point, I mean, basically boils down to courage and adaptability, right? You have to be, willing to, first of all, and this is, I mean, it does, it hurt. The feeling of shame and guilt that people who struggle from addiction carry around, it hurts, man. It hurts your heart, your chest, your head. I used to carry around a lot of stress in my jaw. And so, I mean, and a lot of tension in my jaw. And the moment I was able to say, hey, alcohol is not for you, dude.
Yeah.
I felt 1,000 pounds lighter. And I started reaching out. And I mean, you feel completely naked and stripped down to the bones, right? And then from there, you just start rebuilding. You start reaching out to people. You start finding people who live in like-mindedness. I mean, you start finding people who want to help you. And they don't necessarily have to be going through the same thing you're going through. Jake, I mean, like you and I have been friends now, for going on a few years. And I've always admired the fact that, well, first of all, when I saw you were doing this podcast, I didn't think there was a more perfect person for it.
Oh, I appreciate that, man.
And, our leadership Boise cohort and going through that, I mean, there are 53 people, I believe there were 53 people in our cohort who, I mean, I walked away feeling like those people were our friends.
Absolutely.
Maybe even like our family.
Yeah.
And Aaron and the chamber did such a great job with that program that this was, we were going through Leadership Boise right when I was sobering up. So starting our year, I wasn't drinking. And I mean, it was a huge change for me. And it does. People feel that stuff and the shame and the guilt. But once you can say, well, you've heard the old adage, you can't help anyone until you can help yourself, right?
Right.
It takes, there's no one way to get to that place of vulnerability where you can say, I need help. Sometimes it takes people 6 times of trying, of falling down, and, they've got to have someone there to help them, to pick them back up.
Yeah.
They've got to have other people there for them. I mean, like I had mentioned before, that social connectedness is what keeps people alive, keeps people's headspace clear, and keeps them around. And I mean that. We're promoting this, like behind you can see it says reach out. And that's for Idaho Suicide Prevention Awareness. Those types of thoughts were going through my head. And at one night I had a 44 caliber loaded with a note written out to my wife and my 1-year-old daughter. Because in my mind, I had made a rationalization that they would be better off with someone more steady. And for whatever reason, I walked up to my wife and woke her up, and that was the night before. That was August 17th, 2018. And, I remember my dad saying, hey, it's nothing to be ashamed of. My mom, telling me constantly, it's nothing to be ashamed of. So the genesis, I think, in part that I want to sort of bring home is that those things are happening to any individuals is is reach out to
Yes.
me, reach out to a friend that you know will listen. Sometimes that, sometimes, I'm really fortunate in that I have such a close relationship with my family that I was able to lean on them, but they had been telling me for, you know, a couple years that they were worried about me.
Yeah.
And I had a friend sit me down and tell me, you're going to wrap your car around or your truck around a tree, or you're going to hurt someone else, or you're going to hurt yourself, and you're not a bad guy when you drink, but it's really hard on you and it's really hard on others around you. And, that's when I realized that my life wasn't just about me. And that's what I said before. I feel more young now than I did when I was 23. I feel like I was given a second chance, and I reached out, and there were people who didn't even know they helped me that helped me. And I've told them that now, and they never realized it. Where, that first year of sobriety for me was like, man, I don't know if I want a ton of people to know. You know,
And
year two,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and then I was just going to say year two rolled around, and I'm like, why sit here and recover in silence, when there are people out there who went through what you're going through, or what you went through, or going through what you went through, and you can help them. There are people dying quietly from substance abuse, from addiction, and it's recognized as a disease, and it's not anything I asked for,
Yeah.
Again, if you would have told me I would be an alcoholic when I was 18 years old, I probably would have hit you with my skateboard.
Hey, I want to go back to two things that you're saying here. I think the first one is the suffering in silence, right? I mean, again, good quotes here. Most men live lives of quiet desperation, or you can expand that. Men suicide rates are extremely high, but yeah, still, most people are living lives of quiet desperation, suffering in silence in many ways. And that reach out campaign sounds powerful. It's a great message, man. It's one of those things that somehow you have to have that click in your head to say that somebody else cares. Like and you have to be vulnerable, or have the courage that to catalyze that conversation. But I think what we find is, like, most people really are there and willing to kind of help you out. I think the second thing is, man, it is tough to be social. And most years, I mean, this is a year that maybe is an exception, but tough to be social, especially in the business world, and have a hard line around drinking. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about your lived experience there, because when I heard you were coming back to Boise, and I did not know this about you, I did not know that you had taken on sobriety. The first thought that went in my mind is like, I got to hit Kyle up, go grab a beer, like, and so it's one of those natural things, like, hey, let's get a cocktail. Hey, let's get together. Let's have some libations and catch up in life. And that's such commonplace. And it's not, it's not malicious. It's just a thing that people do, like coffee, like lunch, like anything else. It's, reserved for more casual friendships, like you and I have.
Yeah.
And so, what's that been like? What's it like saying no to certain things like that? What's it like, or just saying, no, I won't drink, but yes, you can. And yeah, let's get together for sure. Like, help me understand that.
That's a really great question. It does not bother me at all when other people drink around me. And it actually didn't from the start, but it does bother some, everyone's different. And that's, they talk a lot about that through, the 12 steps that you walk through in recovery. I'll tell you this, it hasn't been easy, but it gets easier. And being around people when you're not drinking, it's short-term pain for long-term gain for a little while. You kind of have to sit there and suffer through watching other people drink while you're the sober guy, right? And then it becomes, wow, like, I've digested all that whole conversation. I'm not going to wake up hungover And I don't need alcohol to feel comfortable in my own skin when I'm walking around at these social events in Boise,
Yeah.
or anywhere. And I'm not going to be worried about, what I said the next morning, or if I overstepped, or if there's someone I need to apologize to, or, all of those things. But it's worth it. I mean, for those people, and honestly, alcoholism wasn't really something that ever ran in my family either. Um, all that to say is I respect the hell out of people who drink responsibly.
Mm.
Um, and I really, really respect people who can recognize the fact that they can't, and that it's an everyday thing. But it's not easy, but it gets easier, and it's worth it. I mean, if this year has taught us anything, like I said, it's to look out for each other. But you said something that's really important. And, and I definitely want to reaffirm what you said. And that is, most people are willing to help. So when you realize that you have taken that step, right? And then you've reached out to a couple of people and you've said, I need help. And it could be in different areas. Like when I was going through this, Jake, my boss knew, a coworker of mine knew, and they knew I was working hard to get through it, and they knew how, you called me a socialite once, which was partly true.
I
Well,
did. I did do that once. And I believe you and I were drinking quite a bit that day too, if I remember correctly.
yeah, and it's funny we can laugh about that because, it's such a huge part of our lifestyle, right? But you can do it and not have a drink in your hand.
Yeah.
I thank God for LaCroix.
Yeah. For sure, dude.
Love LaCroix.
Whatever that essence is, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Once you let those people know that you're going through those things, they'll absolutely embrace the fact that you need help, or they shouldn't be in your lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it's blunt and it's candid, but it's true, And
Yeah. And sometimes the reality is you have to edit relationships. Right.
yeah,
I mean, you have to edit some relationships that are not healthy with you. It's like you can really like people, but not like who you are around them,
mhm,
and not like the way that they are or what they respect about you. Like, hey, this is a thing I'm going through. That, please respect it. And, some people will be like, come on, take a shot, or like, come on, like drink. It's like, okay, well, now I have to edit my relationship with you because you're not taking my life seriously and I am. And that's
right.
tough. That can be
It
tough.
is. It's hard to be the CEO of your own life and make those hard decisions.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. Those tough business decisions.
Yeah, I mean, choosing who and when you want to, it is so hard, man. But, and it's not something that I've mastered. It's, life is so circumstantial. A lot of people say they don't believe in circumstance, but, if you don't make decisions, they're going to be made for you. And living your life with intention is such an important thing, especially when you've gone through what a lot of folks have. And some of the most inspirational people I've met in my life are the folks that have relapsed a half a dozen times, and now they have 30 plus years of sobriety. They still have a family. They have kids. They can, they're people that you can truly take advice from. But if your head is there, you've got to reach out, and it's okay. It is okay to have to, it is possible to be a young professional and or a professional and have a problem with addiction. It is totally okay to admit that you have a problem with addiction. And it is totally okay to lean on others in your life to help you get through those hard times, because you can go, I mean, you can't do it alone. It's not an alone thing.
Okay.
Um, you can try, you know, but it's much easier with people and good friends. I mean, and that's why I was so thankful you invited me on your podcast. 2020 has been a hard year, man, but 2020 has brought us a lot of blessings too.
Yeah.
And I don't want all of this hardship to overshadow the fact that, people I think are looking out for each other more now than they ever have. We're fortunate in that Boise is a big city, or a small city with a big heart,
Yeah.
man. And the other thing it's taught me is forgiveness. Is that forgiveness isn't just for the other person as much as it is for yourself. And forgiving yourself is one of the hardest things that, a human being can do that's trapped in that tailspin of addiction. And it takes hard work, and it takes time. It takes self-discipline. But I will say this, that first AA meeting I walked into, and you know how small Boise is. I mean, there's 2 degrees of separation.
Oh, sure. Just about everywhere.
So I walked in there and I knew 4 people. And there's 25 to 30 people sitting in this room, and I've been to Celebrate Recovery, AA, and, done a lot of reading on my own. And although I'd like to claim I love to read self-help books, I usually have to read a self-help book in tandem with like something else that's not self-help to keep myself sort of
balanced
in the reading zone, but balance.
You read the 3 pages of The Hobbit, and then you turn over and you're just like, okay.
Then you flip open Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights book, and you're like, okay, I'm taking this one seriously, which that was actually a pretty light, easy, good self-help read.
Oh, really? I haven't looked at that one yet. I'll have to grab it.
Yeah, Matthew, if you're out there, damn good book, man.
Yeah, he's an avid listener for sure. Matthew McConaughey.
The Lincoln Lawyer was that was my favorite movie of yours, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's taught me to forgive, to be more humble, more authentic, to help others, put others before yourself, and believe in principle.
Yeah.
Life is too short to hang around a job that you feel like isn't reciprocating.
Yeah.
Work for the guy you explained earlier that maybe shouldn't have been in the leadership role.
Yeah.
Which in his defense, he could have been a good leader to others, but he might not be to you.
Right.
And that's okay.
Well, so the biggest takeaway here, and again, I'd like you to shout out some resources or some places that people can go, and then also where to find you, or specifically on like Instagram or social media, whatever it is, just so maybe people could reach out as somebody like yourself who has resources, that's interested in being open about what your journey has been so far in this case, and helping professionals regardless of age. I heard something recently that's kind of a good theme to what we're talking about here. Is my buddy Steve Eckert, who's actually come on the podcast. He says it's either one day or day one, right? It's either you're in your mind saying, hey, one day I'm going to stop doing this, or one day I'm going to do that, or you can wake up and realize that you get to self-author whoever you're going to be that day. The only thing that's tying you to the past is your perception of who you are and what you do behaviorally. And that if you can untether that, and you can understand that, it's day one and you're moving forward with that, and you can seek out those resources. And it sounded like that's kind of what you did. You kind of hit that tipping point and you said, all right, when I get up tomorrow, it's going to be a different day and I'm going to seek help. I'm going to seek resources. And that's a catalyst for changing your life in this such of a powerful way. And it's a real inspiration to me, my man. I really appreciate you opening up about it on the podcast and talking about what it's like to be a high functioning professional, but having some self-awareness about some challenges that you're having. So any resources for others or where folks can go, or any other advice, stones to turn over that we haven't?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my Instagram handle is @DudeBellnap, and I'm happy to talk to anyone, especially young professionals who are going through this and maybe just need to talk it through. It's hard, it's difficult, it's different for everyone, you know. I mean, I love the saying, you know, we don't give up, we go over, we go under, we go around, or we go through,
Right.
but we never give up. You know, and that means if you fall down, you've got to get back up. And that's why it's so important to have those people around you. Alcoholics Anonymous, obviously a really great resource. It's very traditional. And the one thing I've learned about their teachings are that it's one of the adages in life that you really get. You can take what am I trying to say here?
You can take what you learn there and apply it to other areas.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there are things that are said sometimes that, I mean, aren't going to be applicable to your life in any way, shape, or form. And then there are things that some people say that you go, wow, that totally resonates with me. That's me. And you may be able to connect with that person after the meeting and just ask them about it, because, you know, really what those rooms are for people to come together, continue talking about the day-by-day stuff. And, you know, some of the healthiest people in the world are people that go to AA every day, man. Celebrate Recovery is another really great program that's more faith-based.
Okay.
You know, I would say taking a huge hand and a huge handhold in communities, definitely in our part of the world. But it's, you know, they're great. I mean, they provide childcare, they feed you. They're welcoming. And that's the other thing I would say is there is typically, and there should not be any judgment in that room or those rooms, or when you reach out to a struggling addict for help, because they've been there. And that's what I was afraid of day one when I walked into that AA meeting. And then I looked forward to going because I got to see these people over and over and over again. And I looked forward to Celebrate Recovery on Tuesday evenings, and I looked forward to meeting with the substance abuse counselor. And I mean, it just became a really healthy thing in my life, you know. And had I not been nudged by several folks to turn it around, you know, even though I was Boise's Young Professional of the Year, I mean, I might be dead.
Yeah.
Might be dead, might not have a wife, might not have the 2 daughters that I do. You know, and I can't sit here and say that I'll never relapse, because that's the future, and I don't ever want to. You know, I can tell you that would be absolutely the most earth-shattering thing that could ever happen to me. Yeah. But to bring it all home, man, reach out, embrace that, because it is so important. Social connectedness and getting help it doesn't need to be as hard as people think it is. And there are I mean, regardless of who's listening, there are people in your life that care about you. And if you reach out to them, you may not know where to go, but they may know where to go.
Absolutely.
And they may introduce you to, you know, I don't know, a nurse who has 30 years of sobriety, 20 years of sobriety, 5 years of sobriety. I mean, so I'm working on, I think I'm like 2.5 years, right? And you have to celebrate all those small milestones, like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and what, it could either be day one or one day. I mean, was it Steve Eckert?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, dude, that's the real deal.
That's the real deal. So he's a powerful man, the powerful Steve Eckert.
It is. I mean, it's living day by day, dude, and
Yeah.
just enjoying the people you have in your life and what you're doing. Especially if you're in a situation that you don't like, you don't have to be in it.
Yeah.
We've we've got a lot of family in California, and they don't like California. It's like,
I hear that. Well, hey, listen, man. One, I just want to, again, I want to thank you for one, sharing your story. I mean, you're such a good dude, and you're such a fun person to know and a positive person to have in my life. And I'm honored that you take the time to come on, and then honored with your transparency and your outwardness around your lived experience and your willingness to be a catalyst for others. And I hope that if there's anybody who's struggling, whether that's, habits or behaviors you've had before COVID, or something that you've picked up along the way, because this is a really stressful, trying time, that maybe you can connect with some of the wise words that Kyle had here, and that you would reach out, and that you would look for either those close to you or those resources that are in your community, in order to make the change, in order to live a life that you deserve to live, for sure. So Kyle, again, thank you for coming on the podcast, my friend. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you here in 2021 for a nice coffee.
hey, Happy New Year. I love you, dude.
I love you too, brother. Cheers.
Yeah.